welcome to another crafty video. This one is going to be a little bit different. I think I'm going to start up a new series. Not that I'm going to do this all the time, but I thought it would be specifically good for these products that I wanted to try out. So the new kind of series is going to be called CRaFTi Experiments. So for my birthday last year, my sibling got me some of these colours of water marbling paints from DecoArt because I really wanted to try them. And then also the wonderful Vicky, who I know you're probably watching, she sent me a really generous PayPal donation for my birthday last year as well. And I also put some of that towards getting more colours and all of the different bits and pieces that I would need to play with for this water marbling. I've always been fascinated by water marbling, and I did give it a go maybe like 5 or 6 years ago. I found Anna-Marie Ridderhoff's channel, and she showed how you could do water marbling by mixing up the size, which is the thickened water that you float the paints on, using wallpaper paste, and then you'd have to thin down your acrylic paints and add oxgol as a surfactant to make it spread out on the top of the water. However, I never had much luck with that. The colours were never very vibrant. I never did a video on it in the end because it just didn't work out how I wanted it to, probably just because I was being lazy and didn't do as much experimenting as I could have done. But I was looking on Budley Crafts and I found these gorgeous water marbling acrylic paints already mixed from DecoArt, so I just really wanted to give them a go, hence the birthday present, and then using the PayPal donation from Vicky to buy them as well. So I thought I would do these crafty experiment videos to kind of show you me playing with a product, because you know when I do my up close videos I've got samples ready to show you. Some of them you know, that works perfectly because it's just using like stamps and dies and bits and pieces, but I thought if I do an up close video with these, which I still might do as well in the future when I finished all these experimental ones, it's going to be hard for me to explain exactly how I created that background without me having to mix up more water and create those backgrounds in that video as well. So I thought, well, I've got to make the samples to show in an up-close video, or to possibly use in a sped-up video to create a card with a gorgeous marbled background. So I thought, well, I might as well film it. So I'm going to do this kind of I think possibly 5 parts, maybe more, depending how addicted I get to the water marbling. Of like experimenting with it. So the first one, I'm literally just going to have fun and explain to you how I've mixed up the water, explain like a bit of what the water marbling is and stuff, and the channels that I found that I really like watching, which kind of got me hooked on wanting to try this as well. And then also each sort of extra experiment is going to go through like me playing with a different pattern, or perhaps playing with other acrylic paints. I kind of felt like if I've got all the colours already done, perfectly worked out, they'll work perfectly straight away, instead of me going through my entire stash of acrylic paints, which is quite a lot of different colours, and me trying to mix them up and, you know, playing like that. I thought if I've already got the colours, I can then custom mix a few colours, which I've done over here and to the other side of this palette as well. And I can also try out just like a couple of other paints, like perhaps I want a little bit of a silver metallic or a gold metallic in there, or try like a sparkly paint, or possibly even some of the iridescent paints from Arteza. I thought if I've got all the colours, then I'm more likely to experiment because I won't have to spend so much time making the original colours and stuff. So I kind of felt like this was a nice way of sort of doing it, and I thought it kind of shows you the experiments as they happen. Some of this is going to be sped up into music because I'm probably going to just get carried away making a bunch of different backgrounds, and it'll be repeating the same process, so you won't need to have me talking over it. But some of it's going to be real time, me just saying, I wonder if this is going to work, let's see if we can like mix up this paint and get it to work, let's see if this different pattern will work, different colours together perhaps, or you can do this kind of thing with rakes and combs to get the different patterns of water marbling as well, like a Gelgit pattern, or doing a bouquet design, which is like the furthest pattern that you can go. And I want to experiment with ways of possibly making my own rakes, although I did buy some really cheap ones off of Amazon, which are pretty good actually, and I've got like a little wooden comb to try and do the comb thing with, but I might have to modify it and put like needles or cocktail sticks on it or something instead. But all those kind of things will be in all of these separate videos because I just want to play. And I thought, well, if I'm going to have a whole day, I've dedicated an entire day just to play with this because I just really, really want to. And I thought, well, I might as well get a few videos out of it for you as well. So if you're interested in any of the water marbling, obviously these were gifts from my sibling and from Vicky, but I bought them from Budley Craft and also Lily Grace Crafts. I'm not affiliated with either of those, but I do particularly love Budley Crafts. I do buy quite a few things from there. But I'll put links to those in the description. Just, you know, in case you want to get any, those are the places in the UK that I found them, or you can go straight to the DecoArt website and get them from there as well if you're elsewhere in the world. I think they are based in America, but, you know, you could probably get cheaper shipping perhaps from America, I'm not sure, but anyway, if you did want to get hold of them, then I'll put those links there. And also I will link to the channels that I like to watch as well. There's Blue Ivy Marbling, and there's another one that's called something Ebrew, I can't remember the exact name of it, but he's got some really cool tutorials of how to, like, he's doing like a series at the moment actually of like the beginner basics of water marbling, and also I saw him do a few things where you like fill out the background colour and do some proper detailed kind of patterns, and one of them almost looked like a monstera leaf, and you know I like monstera leaf, so I might give that a go at some point as well. That'll probably be a sped up video perhaps or something, but so I just kind of thought it's not really going to work as a tutorial or an up-close video because I want to do so many different parts to it and it'll end up being like hours long. So I thought if I just invent another category of videos that's just going to be called CRaFTi Experiments. So perhaps as well, I do really, really, really want to play with my jelly plate again. So perhaps I'll do a series like this with my jelly plate, and you can let me know in the comments if you'd be interested in something like that. But anyway, let's get on with kind of playing, but first of all I'm going to tell you how I mix the water up. And originally, so I have done a little bit of water marbling. It was for a magazine commission. So literally my first play with these was making cards for a magazine, for a masterclass, which is going to be out in Simply Cards and Papercraft issue 254. I'm not 100% sure when it's coming out, but I don't think it will be long as I'm filming this video, so probably by the time I've edited this video it might be out. If it is, I'll link it below in the description as well. But that's just showing again a few different like basic patterns, how I was watching Blue Ivy Marbling and she shows how to create these gorgeous flowers, and I did that on one of the cards, and I also showed like how to die cut your patterns and emboss them and stuff like that. So that will be a masterclass in Simply Cards and Papercraft as well. But for this, I just wanted to do a lovely, just a series playing with all of the colours that I wanted to play with. So I love doing like a neutral background. So over here I've mixed up like almost like a lost shadow kind of colour, a hickory smoke, and kind of like a pumice stone kind of colour. Sometimes when I have like a coloured image I won't really want like a neutral background, and I thought if I mix these up to kind of be distressing kind of colours, then I could add a bit of stamping on top of it as well. So I really want to experiment with not just having a marbled background with something on top of it like I did in the magazine commission, but you know, just putting my own stamp on it and using it like it's a patterned paper or something that I've stenciled or something. So there will be sped up videos of me using all of these backgrounds at some point eventually, but for now I'm just making the backgrounds. So to start off, you're going to need a container. When I did the magazine commission one, I was doing it in an A5 container because I just felt that maybe A5 would be better for my desk. But the trouble is, you can kind of only get, you spend ages making that background and you only get enough to make one card. So I thought if I go up to an A4 one, I'm still only going to use roughly A5 pieces of cardstock, whereas in this one I was using more of an A6 piece of cardstock. You can definitely do the entire print off of it, but then I feel like you might get messy edges and then you wouldn't be able to make it into 4 cards. So I thought if I do the pattern, use A5 pieces, I can make it into 2 cards at least, or possibly, you know, die cut it further and turn it into more. So you need your container, and I was using an A5 one which worked perfectly, but now I've moved up to an A4 one. Let me move that out of the way. And then you need to mix up your water. So basically how water marbling works, which is also called Ebrew, which is like the ancient Turkish art form of water marbling. You have thickened water and you thin your paints, and then the paints like float on the surface of the water, and you can add different surfactants and stuff to your paints to make them expand more on the water or to stay more contracted. If you add more background colour, you can do more detailed work because the patterns will stay more discreet and close together. because all of the rest of the surface tension of the water has already been taken up. I'm going to hold this here because the focus wants to go in and out. But to make the water thicker, you need this, which is called Magic Medium, or you can try the wallpaper paste version, and I'll link to Anna Marie Ridderhoff's video below where I originally saw that years ago. But this works really, really well. This mixing up of it, however, has got a few little chunks left in it, but they've sunken to the bottom, and it's only the surface that you want to focus on. And for this A4 tray, it tells you on here to put 1 teaspoon to 2 cups of water. So I was using a 1 cup and a half a teaspoon, so it's a 1-to-1 ratio if you're using a half teaspoon and a 1 cup. So I did 9 cups of water to 9 half teaspoons of the powder, and that fills up an A4 tray really nicely. And I think when I did the A5 tray, I just did 4 of each. So 4 cups to 4 half teaspoons of the powder, and it mixes up really nicely. It has all of the instructions on here of how to mix it up, so that's kind of like the base that you need. Then you also need something to pull your prints off with. You can just use printer paper. However, when I was initially experimenting for that magazine commission, when I went to rinse it to get some of the size off so that it would dry quicker, it actually rinsed off some of the pattern. There wasn't anything in the paper to make it stick. So, DecoArt sell this water marbling paper, which is 8.5 by 11-inch sheets, and you get 20 sheets in a pack. It is kind of expensive because it's like £10 for this pack of paper, but it does work really, really well. And you can also buy the water marbling surface prep, which is called alum, which is, I think, aluminium sulfate, or I think it's aluminium sulfate, and you dissolve this in water, and then you can brush it onto cardstock or spray it onto cardstock or papers, whatever you want to marble onto. And you can also use this to prepare fabric. If you want to do water marbling onto fabric, you can like make more water and do it more like hydro dipping and dip things under the surface, like shoes and things as well. I'm just experimenting with paper at the moment though, but this is the surface prep. So because with that magazine commission, when I was die cutting, I kind of felt it was really annoying because the paper was really thin compared to like 300 GSM cardstock, which I usually like to use. So I mixed up my own alum, and this is like the 3rd filling of this bottle, because I sprayed it on a lot of the cardstock as well. But I've just named it alum, used one of the Nouveau Light Mist bottles and mixed up the solution and then put it in here. So I've got that for a later date as well. And basically what you want to do is, I took 8 sheets of A4 cardstock because that's what would fit on the table that I was using to lay it all out on, and I had them still put together as A4 sheets. I've just cut it into A5 now to work with, and you can see on each corner I put a cross, and then that is the back of the card, and so I sprayed the front of the card. And you have to do it twice. You do 2 layers, so you spray it all once, let it all dry, spray it all again, let it all dry. You can iron these to make them flatter. I just left them under a couple of heavy containers of paints last night, and they have kind of flattened down quite nicely, so I think they're going to be flat enough for using on here. But I haven't tried this yet, so this is going to be an experiment, you know, as we're working together to kind of see how well the alum actually works with my 300 GSM CRaFTi UK smooth white cardstock. That's my favourite white cardstock. If I'm ever using white card in a video, it's going to be that card. I found it like probably like 10 years ago in my local garden centre, and I've just loved it ever since because it just seems to take everything that I want to do to it, which is really nice. I can do like spray inks on it, I can do ink blending, I can do colouring. I mean, it's probably not it's not like a be all and end all the best card ever. There's obviously cards out there that are better for all of those things, but I just find this card is adequate for what I like to do, so that's why I tend to just keep buying this card and using it. So anyway, I've prepared that with the alum, so I've got A5 sheets of this, and I've also cut down that proper paper to A5 sheets as well. And if I just compare them to kind of show you, this is the paper. It is more of like a patterned paper, and then obviously 300 GSM card is lovely and thick. So it kind of depends, do you want to use it as a patterned paper? Do you want to possibly die cut into it, emboss it with embossing folders and things like that? This, when you emboss it with an embossing folder, does kind of crack and fall apart. I did manage to get it to work for the magazine commission, but it did kind of crack into pieces. But I just love working with 300 GSM cards, so that's why I wanted to see if I could get this to work, because it's going to be more just perfect for how I like to work, really. If I wanted to cut it into a frame, if I wanted to cut a circle out of it, it's going to behave the way that I want it to behave because it's on the thicker cardstock. So that is the paper, and that's how you prepare the water. Then I think next things you're going to need is you want to have some cheap printer paper, and this is how you're going to clean the surface of this. So because I'm going to work on A5 sheets, we definitely need something that is A4 to pick up all of the excess paint that's going to be on the surface of the water. And you can also use like blue tissue or kitchen roll as well to sop up anything too. But it actually doesn't matter if any of the paints sink. Ooh, I touched the surface. If any of the paints sink below the surface of the water, it does not matter at all. So as we're working, you might see my water getting dirtier and dirtier, especially onto further videos down the line, because I'm going to do them all today, hopefully. So it's just the surface being clean, and you can check that by putting a piece of cheap printer paper on the top, pulling it off, and then if it's clean, it's ready to go. I have noticed there is a few pumpkin hairs on mine, so I'm going to have to be wary of those, because those will interfere with your patterns if there's something on the surface of the water. And also if you leave residue, even if you have pulled off like an A4 print and there's like some residue in there, it might affect the next pattern that you do as well. So you kind of want to make sure it's nice and clean between each of your patterns that you're doing. And actually DecoArt do also sell like cleaning paper. However, I just thought, I've got printer paper, I might as well use that. But I think it is like blank newspaper paper. I think that's kind of like the paper that they sell in a packet to be able to clean the surface of the water. So I think that's everything I need to tell you for the beginning, and I will introduce different things as we're going along, I think, as well. So you can obviously, the paints, oh yeah, maybe I should actually introduce the paints as well. These are the gorgeous water marbling acrylic paints, and they come in a beautiful rainbow of colours, which I might have bought all of them. 14 colours, and 2 of them are white and black, so there's 12 colours and then white and black as well. So the good thing about having white and black is that you can make tints and highlights like of each of the colours, or tints and tones, I think that's the tints and shadows, maybe that's the word, of each of the colours, so you can make them lighter and darker, and maybe even do monochrome backgrounds where you have taken some of the same colour but put black or white in it to create different tones, and then you can do like a monochrome background. Also, for applying the paint to the water, they have a nice needle tip, so you can apply them straight onto the water, and it's probably going to work better doing that for the A4 tray. When I was working with the A5 tray, doing it straight from the bottle added kind of like too much, so I was actually just using a cocktail stick and picking up a little drop and putting that on the surface of the water. So if you want a smaller application than what the bottle gives, you can just pick it up with a cocktail stick or a kebab skewer, or there's also other things you can use. I was experimenting with little mini pipettes that I bought years ago, and they work really nicely. However, they were putting out too much colour for the A5 tray that I was initially working on. So with the A4 tray, we can experiment with these again at some point within these CRaFTi experiment videos. And then I was also experimenting with this. So I don't know if you've ever seen the Tim Holtz splatter brush. I don't have one, but I think this is kind of like the basic idea of one of those splattery brushes. And basically what you do is you steal some bristles off of like a dustpan and brush. I've got one of these, I had a new one in the cupboard of these IKEA ones, and you can see I've just been cutting the bristles, so it's not going to affect the use. I probably should have taken them from the back, but it's not going to affect the use of this brush. But I was just nicking some of the bristles, and then I just washi taped them to a cocktail stick. But maybe if you have dexterity problems and you want something thicker than a cocktail stick to hold on to, perhaps using cheap pencils or maybe chopsticks or something to make it a wider thing to grip onto, you could do that as well. And I have also, I can't remember who it was, I was watching so many water marbling videos, but somebody had put a blob of hot glue on there and then made it more permanent, you know, and stuck the bristles into hot glue rather than just a little bit of washi tape. But these kind of work. I feel like if I go to town with these, I'm going to completely cover everything on my desk with little splatters of paint. So we might play with these again in another video down the line, and I'll explain how I made them again in that video. But, you know, I'm not sure if we're definitely going to play with those or not. So I will just get myself organised, and then we'll start with our first gorgeous water marbled pattern. So I probably should also say I've got the lid of the box. So this is one of those tonic boxes that they sell to store your papers and stuff, and it's got the tonic logo on it. But so I'm just dedicating this box to work with my water marbling. But this one is off to the side, and that is going to be my wash box or my rinse box. So you don't want to like run them under the tap, sort of rinse them, because you might rinse off too much of the dye, it's too harsh. But what I did last time is I've just got my wash bottle, which is the kind of one you'd have in a lab that we'd put distilled water in. I use this all the time for filling up my spray bottles. It's really handy, and it works really nicely for sort of rinsing. So you can kind of have the tray there, hold it up at an angle, and just sort of gently rinse over it with a little bit of water. And the whole thing about rinsing it, it kind of, if you have been like overzealous with the amount of paint you've put on the water, it'll rinse off like the excess. So you might feel like, oh gosh, the pattern's running, but it's just the excess water or excess paint coming off. But also I found it makes the papers dry quicker because you're taking off that thick water. It's kind of like a little bit gelatinous. You know when you're making jelly and it's kind of started to set a little bit, or you've just dissolved the jelly cubes or something, it kind of feels like, you know, a bit slimy like that. That's what the water feels like, but to be thicker. So you're just like washing that off, and I find that makes it dry quicker, because when I was leaving those ones for the magazine commission to dry, there were areas on them that I obviously hadn't washed off properly, and they were taking a bit longer to dry out because it's, you know, thicker water is more difficult to evaporate. So that's just why we want to rinse them off. I might bring that over and rinse it in front of you for the first one, perhaps, if it works out. So I'll try and show you that process if I can. So I think I need to clean the surface of this water because there was something floating in it. So I'm just going to take a cheap piece of the printer paper, place it into the box, let it settle on the surface, and that's how you would take a full A4 print if you're doing A4 as well. And then you can just sort of slide it over the edge of the box, and that's just taking anything that's sitting on the water off, but later on it will be to remove the paint from the water. So I'm not sure where to start. Do I start with bright colours? I do kind of really want to do a pebble pattern, so I'm going to pick out a few of the gorgeous bluey green tones to do a nice like pebble kind of pattern, which is basically the most simple pattern that you can do. It's, oh no, is it pebbles or stones? I think some people call it pebbles, some people call it stones, but it's just blobs of paint on the surface of the water, and you're just like sprinkling the paint on to create this kind of effect. So with these paints you do want to shake them a little bit before you use them. However, some of them leak, so just be wary of that, because my dark blue one there has got paint all in its cap because when I shook it, it leaked a little bit. So just be a little bit wary of that, but you just want to make sure they've had a good little shake. Oh, and also I bought multiples of the white because I've actually got all the way down to here already with white, because I knew that I wanted to not go too garish with like the marbled pattern. Some of them I will do, but other ones I knew in my mind that I was going to want to use a lot of white or mixed colours to make them more pastel and stuff as well. So I actually bought 3 whites, and I'm nearly down here, and I've only played with them once, so it was a good idea to buy quite a few different whites so that you've got that if you know that you're going to want to mix paler colours. So I am going to start off with the white, and you just want to sort of gently add the water to the paint to the surface of the water, and you can see it goes on like a blob and then it disappears as it's spreading out on the surface of the water. So I'm just doing a few random bits of white, and this will mean that the background will be more white, so it'll just be the colour of the paper. And then just want to come in with your different colours. So I'm going to do a little bit of this light green, which is just called yellow green. And we'll just add a few different stones on here. And you can see why they call it stones, because you can see it's sort of like staying in these round little patterns. And then I'm going to go with the green colour. And going straight from the bottle is definitely working much better with an A4 tray. So if you do just want to make it really simple for yourself, then go with an A4 tray, because, you know, it's very, very simple to get your colours on there, because you can go straight from the bottle. and it's not adding too much colour. Then I'm going to go tropical blue. And you can also do different types of stone patterns. This is just literally randomly putting the colours on, but you can also be more intentional with where you put the colours, and you can go concentric with your colours and create different patterns that way as well. That's kind of how you create the flowers, which will be in a future video. So then we're going to go on with this one, which is aquamarine, and then I think I will come back with some more of that yellow green, and I might come up back with some more white. You can see there, that was too big of a blob. It just went straight through the surface and went straight to the bottom. So I'm not sure if no, it's okay. I thought maybe I'd reached the maximum surface tension of the water, but it was just too heavy of a blob of paint. So if that happens, it doesn't matter at all, because that's just going to stay under the surface of the water. So you can see crazy things happening with some of them really liking to spread out a bit more. We're going to go a bit more white in here. And the white likes to spread out a lot. This is actually another different technique that you can do, putting lots of white in there to push all the colours away, and it creates like a webbing kind of effect, which I will experiment with at some point if I remember. But I want to go a bit more green in this, I think, and play around with this. Now, because I've put so much on and it's sort of spreading out like this, I might do this as a swirly one rather than just with the stones kind of pattern. I maybe should have, maybe if you do the smaller amounts, you get more of the stone pattern kind of effect. Ooh, that's funny, it's sort of moving back in again. Because obviously I want the central portion of this, and most of the colour is moved to the outside. So I think I am going to go with a swirly pattern for this. So I'm just going to take a kebab skewer, and then I'm just going to drag it through the colours to create a gorgeous swirl. Ooh. I think actually this, where it's kind of like splitting up a little bit, I think maybe I have put too much on the surface. It was a few months ago that I originally played with them. So I think I've maybe put a bit too much on the surface. So I'm not sure I'm going to use my real sort of paper to pick this up. Maybe I'll just use the printer paper to pick this up. Yeah, this can be a practice, and I'll just use the printer paper to pick this up because I don't like the way that it's kind of separated like that. So we can just place our paper on. You can just work on printer paper as well. It's totally fine just to work on printer paper. And then you can pick it up at the corner. And I don't think you really need to rinse the printer paper as much. Although actually there is quite a lot of colour on there. So, oh, it does look quite nice actually. We might recreate something similar then to go on the proper paper. Less white to begin with, I think. But look how pretty that looks. So I'm going to put that behind me to dry. And then I'm going to take another piece of paper to lift up any of the excess paint that might be on the surface. Okay, and I think the rest has sort of sunken below the surface. And I'm also just going to take a baby wipe and just wipe along there, just to get off any colour that's left on the side of the tray as well. So this is kind of weird for me because I would usually just be doing this and going, oh, that didn't turn out very well, and talking to myself. But it's kind of weird actually doing the experimenting with people watching, but hopefully it will be useful for you to kind of see. So I'm going to go much less white for my background colour, I think, and then we'll build it up sort of a bit differently so that we don't overload the surface with too much paint like the last one. And then we can actually add white in a lesser amount. So this is just a little pot here that I've been mixing some colours and then This was one from the magazine commission that I just had the white out because I was applying it in smaller amounts, you know, to do the different patterns. So what you can do is just pick some up with a cocktail stick and like splatter it to get smaller amounts on here, which is kind of more like that stone pattern. And then, yeah, I think we'll go with that. So I'm going to take this and I'm going to swirl it again because I do like the look of the swirls. You can bring some of the colour in from the outside, or you can just go through the middle. Okay, and now we're going to experiment with our alum cardstock and see if this works. And I'm just hoping that the paper is flat enough as well to pick up the pattern nicely. Okay, might leave it a little bit to soak. Fingers crossed. Okay, and then I'm going to scrape it along the edge. Oh, look at that. And then, to rinse it, I'll bring this tray in, and you can see there's excess paint just here. So that alum really does work, because this was not staying at all on this cardstock when I did it the first time. When I was experimenting originally, it did not work, and there's just that excess paint on there. But it did not work at all the first time. It just completely just rinsed the pattern off of there when I didn't have the alum on the cardstock. So that really does work. Look at that cool pattern. Can you imagine that as a couple of different backgrounds for cards with some beautiful die cut flowers or something on there? Really, really pretty. And I might actually rinse it in this direction as well, just to try and get as much of the size off as possible. Okay. That is really beautiful, that one. Okay. It's still breaking up a little bit more than I was hoping that it would. So let's clean off the surface. You can keep any of these clean-up ones as well if they turn out any good, because the colours kind of come back together. So, you know, this can be another background. Because that background that I just did while I wasn't talking was like the best one. That I really, really wanted that exact kind of background. So what I was doing, using white, but using a kebab skewer instead of a cocktail stick, because we're working on A4 instead of A5, I think a kebab skewer is going to be the better way, because you can apply bigger. I mean, they're still smaller than out of the bottle, but I mean, this wouldn't be in the bottle because it's a custom colour, but it's a bigger amount than a cocktail stick, so it's not taking as long, and it was really quick and easy to do. So I'm going to just do a few more like that, because I really want to have these beautiful neutral ones, so you can have some like beautiful flower die cuts as your focal element or something, or even just a sentiment, and then have a gorgeous subtle background that's just like gorgeous hickory smoke and lost shadow distress kind of colours. So I'm just going to do a couple more of those, because I really, really liked how that turned out. And I'm just using the same kebab skewer between the light grey and the dark grey, because they're exactly the same, you know, two colours mixed together. It doesn't particularly matter. So just do more grey, dark grey. And I'm just referring to them as Lost Shadow and Hickory Smoke because, you know, they're the kind of ink colours that we all know. And I just feel like, you know, everybody, well, most crafters who like inky things will know what distress inks are and what distress ink colours are. So I'm just going to go simple splattering of colours, tiny bit more of the dark. Then all I did was swirl it together and then I just tapped on a little bit more, tiny bit more, just to create a couple of like dotty open areas, but just to do something a little bit different. Then I'm going to wait for that to finish moving because it's moving quite a bit from me swirling it, and then I'm going to pick that up with another piece of the alum cardstock. I think I'm going to have to stop at some point and just do some more cardstock with alum on it because it's working really well. So I'm trying to flatten it out a little bit more, and then I'm just going to plop that down. We'll get another beautiful neutral, and then I'm going to repeat this but using my kind of pumice stone-ish colour that I created as well. And I'll probably do a few more greys too. Look how beautiful that looks. It's just perfect. That's exactly what I was going for with a really simple neutral kind of background. So to try and keep my surface clean whilst I'm splattering, I've put a bit of kitchen roll across there to stop it getting over all of my pens and things, and I've got my apron on now as well. So I think I will start with a white background, and I'm kind of drawn towards the yellow-green, the yellow, the actual green, and maybe the tropical blue as like a stone pattern. So we shall see how we get on with that. So I'm going to put lots of white. I think this is like the best way to fill up your background, is to do the stripes across the centre and then it kind of spreads out. Seems to be the best way. So to do the stone pattern, I want to try those brushes, but first I am just going to add some stones of each of the colours first, and then we'll go with the brushes to get the finer sort of speckles, because I feel like from yesterday's experiments the stones tend to go all sorts of weird shapes anyway, but then maybe if we add some fine splatter we'll get some nice defined circles on the top. And then after this I want to show you the like concentric stone patterns where you put like one stone down and then you keep going in the centre with the different colours. That's also how you start flowers and things, but I think it makes a cool background just by itself as well. And I think what I was saying yesterday about putting Jane Gill's woodware doodle bloom kind of flowers over the top or something like that, I think it would look really good. So I want to have a few backgrounds like that ready. So we'll just put a few, oh, need a bit of kitchen roll so we've got a little bubble. Still got the bubble. Right, so we'll go yellow first. Then we'll go with the yellow-green, and you want to shake them before each use, but just be wary that they can leak out of their nozzle and into the cap, because quite a few of mine have done that. Bubble. So here I'm kind of being more intentional where I'm putting the stones. I'm not actually going on top of each of them. I'm trying to be you know, put them in between where I've put other colours. But when we do the splattering, it's going to go completely wild with, you know, sort of where they end up, because we're not going to be able to control it. So I hope you're enjoying this kind of CRaFTi experiment video. I mean, I usually do this whilst I'm watching telly, so it's a bit different, sort of having silence and then talking, but I thought if any of you are interested in these paints, then it might be useful to you. And then we'll go with the tropical blue. Okay, so our initial background is quite wild looking, but I'm hoping if we take these splatter brushes and pick up some colour with these, that it will work nicely. So actually what I'm going to do is just unscrew the lid and dip it in. Wipe off too much of the excess, and then I also think where I was going wrong when I tried the little cocktail stick ones, because they were so short you had to like tap them like this, but I think if you hold them further back and tap them onto something hard, you're going to get the finer speckles. So that does seem to be working well, so that's good. Although I'm hoping I don't get any on you because you're kind of in the firing line up there. Okay, I'm going to go a bit more yellow. So a little bit tricky to kind of, you know, manoeuvre, dip it in and put the lid back on the bottle and stuff. I'm only putting the lid back on just because I don't want to accidentally tip one everywhere. So put the lid back on there and then hold it further down the brush. And this is working much better, I think. And we're getting more of the proper stone kind of pattern. But the dots of paint do go further than you think, so do be careful when you're doing this kind of thing. And it is giving quite a fine little splatter of the colour as well, but I like that. So we've done yellow. I think yellow-green will be fine. I'm not going to contaminate the colour too much by putting this into the bottle. Okay, and then get the paintbrush again. Okay, that looks pretty good. I think that's enough of the green, so we shall leave that brush off to the side. Actually, I might just use the rinsing water just to rinse that out a little bit. I could use the same brush then, actually. Okay, so I just used the rinsing water that's off to the side and clean that off. And then I think this blue would finish it off really nicely, and possibly doing a bit of white as well. So, got the blue. Dip this in here, maybe a bit more than that. And I'm going to screw that lid back onto the green because I didn't actually screw it on properly. And then tap against the paintbrush to try and get the nice small specks. So it's still not quite the stone pattern that I was going for, because they've gone very irregular in shape. The Blue Ivy Marbling lady, I think she's called Jen, who I like to watch, she mixes artist quality acrylic paints down, you know, to make them thinner, to do this on top of the water, and she uses the seaweed extract as the surface. So perhaps when you're using that kind of mixture, you can get the more discreet circles for this kind of technique. And I was trying to achieve that, but it's not particularly working as I was hoping it would in that way. But I still like this pattern though. I still think it's turning out as a good pattern. So we'll do that, and then we can do a little bit of white as well, I think. And for the white, I'm just going to go into my little pot that I had out from yesterday and just do tiny, hopefully tiny little speckles of the white, because I think the white does open out quite a lot, but just to add some different areas into here. Okay, I think that's going to be good. So just rinse off that brush, and then we can put our 300 GSM cardstock that had the alum on it. I mean, maybe I should have ironed this. Maybe that's why I'm getting the little, you know, as I was saying earlier, the little discrepancies in the pattern and stuff, but I don't particularly mind it too much. It's a very organic kind of pattern anyway, so yeah, let's go right in the middle there. And make good contact, hopefully. Okay. And then I'm not going to scrape it across the edge this time. I'm just going to lift it up, and then I'm going to rinse it in the tray. Let's show you the rinsing process again. Actually, that's going to be really pretty picking up what's left on there. So just using the wash bottle. See, it's definitely not very circular, which is really strange from, you know, what I was expecting. But I do really like that pattern. I think it's a very unusual, abstract-y kind of pattern, so I think that looks pretty cool. Okay, and then I can leave that one to dry. Really bright, vibrant colours as well, which is really lovely. And then that pattern, the way that has closed in, looks really cool. So when I clean the surface of the water, I'm going to keep that pattern, I think. And I am going to scrape it off against the edge with the printer paper, so I don't have to rinse it, because I don't know if it'll hold up very well to rinsing. So that looks really cool, that does. I'm not sure if I said before, but DecoArt have a couple of simple, like quick sort of videos on their channel of how to use their paints. And one of the ones that they do is they add like a whole coloured background, and then they do concentric circle stones, and then they just pick it up. So I'm going to try that, because I haven't actually given that a go yet. But I've just got to decide on the colours first. So I am going to do a coloured background. I think on their one they do the darker blue, which is just called blue, but I'm going to go with the lighter blue colour. So you want to do what we were doing with the white and add it to fill the background a bit. And then you want to pick your colours. So I'm just sort of thinking ahead of what kind of thing I would use this background for, and therefore what colours I might want. I'm really liking that yellow green, so let's go with some yellow green then, and we're just going to do stones of these. Oh, that's expanding quite a lot. Okay, so we go the yellow green stone. Then let's go with the aquamarine. Oh, I'm getting a few bubbles. Oh dear. Dribbled it then. It still worked right. That's okay. Okay, then let's go with the background colour again. I've got so many bubbles. Okay, I think just keep it simple with those three colours. So I'm going to go back with the yellow green. Then again with the aquamarine. I like how it expands and then like shrinks back in again. I just need a cocktail stick to pop that bubble and that one. Okay, and then background colour again, which is the light blue. And then the yellow green. And then as we're getting to sort of where we want to complete this kind of pattern, we can start using smaller amounts. So if we then take the lid off of the aquamarine and come in with a kebab skewer, we can put less paint down than what comes out of the bottle, which will then help make the rings in the centre go smaller. So we might need a bit more than that to make it expand. Okay, then we can go back to the background colour. And I'll just use a cocktail stick for this. Ooh. Wow, that spread out more than I thought it was going to. Oh, it's coming back in again, that's alright. Okay, and then one more little dot of the green, I think, to go in the centre of that. This is a pretty cool pattern. I like this one. And if you want to, you can disrupt the pattern as well. I am going to keep it like this because I haven't actually ever done one like this. But you can also disrupt the pattern with your cocktail stick or kebab skewer or whatever you want to move it around with. Okay, I think I like that as it is. So, because I'm working with A5 card, I'm going to decide how I want to place this. I might want to place it more like that because I'm just thinking this will end up being 2 cards. Do I want 2 blobs on 2 cards, or do I want it more like half blobs on 2 cards, if that makes sense? Maybe I want it more like half blobs. Maybe that would look better. So I'm going to go for the middle then. Okay, so I'm going to... I hope I didn't move it too much then. It's because it's thicker card, it's a little bit harder to lay down. I think that's why they go with the thinner paper, because a lot of the people say hold it like at the 2 corners and put the middle down first, but you can't really do that with a thick card. But hopefully this looks alright. Oh yeah. Oh, that's really cool. I like that. That'll make a really cool background for a card. So let's bring this in and rinse it off. You can see I got a bit of a wiggle at that end where the card didn't go down smoothly, but I think you just get better at that with time, and also if you're using the thinner paper it's going to be much easier. But I really like how that turned out. I think that looks pretty cool. So there we go, we've got our concentric stone kind of pattern. I just realised I forgot to show you how to make these little splatter brushes, because they kind of worked. Not really quite as I intended them to, but kind of worked. So if you did want to make something like this, the way I had made it, I put a little bit of red liner tape, this is a 6mm one, at the end of a kebab skewer. And I do think a kebab skewer is better than a cocktail stick because it's longer, so you can sort of go from further away and tap from further away to get better splatter. And then you want to take a dustpan and brush, this is just a cheap IKEA one, and you just want to nick some bristles out of the brush. So I don't want to mess up my water here, but I've got the lid over the top of it. And then I'm just going to trim off a clump of little bristles, not a whole thing, it's more like half of one of these little clumps coming out. You can definitely use something that's got longer bristles as well, that might work even better too, but this is just what I had. And then all I was doing is placing them around the base where I've put that tape and pressing them into place, and then any that don't stick you can just pull out and press onto the other side. And then just to make sure none of those bristles fall off, I was just taking some washi tape and then wrapping that around the base of the brush to kind of create something that looks a little bit like one of those splatter brushes. Not perfect, but it kind of gives you the idea and allows you to sort of play a little bit if you want to. So I thought I'd just add that in as well. So there we have the first CRaFTi Experiments video showing the DecoArt Water Marbling Paint and just sort of playing around with them, showing kind of the stone pattern. I didn't really achieve it properly, plus swirling things, doing the concentric stone pattern. So hopefully you enjoyed this first video. The second one is going to be playing with gelgits, which is adding all of the colours in that random stone pattern and pulling things through it, either if it's just a kebab skewer, if it is a rake that you've bought or made, or a comb or something. So I'm just going to play around with that and see what kind of results that I can achieve. So I will see you in part 2. If you enjoyed this one. So thank you so much for watching, and I'll see you in the next video.